Revenue. It all starts there. If you want to survive as a business, you need revenue. There are many teams and factors that impact revenue: sales, marketing, customer service and success, and many others. And all of these teams have different groups within. They should be aligned and working well together towards a shared goal, right? Well, you'll be surprised. Today, we will look under the hood of RevOps with none other than Jen Igartua, CEO of Go Nimbly, a well-known and successful RevOps consultancy. What is wrong today with RevOps? How can we fix it? Why does it matter? What's Jen's story? And what does she do when she's not fixing the world of RevOps? Stay tuned to learn more about this and many more questions. Jen, thank you so much for being here.
Mateo, it's the first time someone's nailed my last name. Well, it helps with the Rejillo, right?
Yeah. You nailed mine perfectly well the first time.
Thank you.
I'm happy to, reciprocate.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's not an easy one. My family's from the north of Spain, from the Basque Country. And so even for Spanish people, it's kind of hard. It's not like a very common name.
Yeah, we share that. So my grandmother is from the Basque Country as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that's fun.
Yeah, I have a Spanish passport and all, and
gorgeous.
Yeah,
I love that.
Very good. So we're going to get started by the very basics. What is revenue operations, and why do you believe it's essential for modern businesses?
Love it. I will give you a little bit of a metaphor because I think it's easier. I mean, it's not, I think sometimes we spend so much time defining RevOps, and it really isn't that complicated. It's the operators behind your go-to-market team, right? It's the people defining the process and the tools, and essentially building, in a way, the product that your internal team uses, right? We're building all of the infrastructure. We're just building it on top of Salesforce or HubSpot, et cetera. But if you think about it from a more kind of metaphor story perspective, if we're all just trying to make a movie, the go-to-market team are the actors. They're the ones that are actually engaging with the customer. They're the ones putting on the show. As operators, we're doing all the things behind the scenes. We're getting the scripts together and the food together, and we're making sure that the actors are ready and that they're prepped. And ultimately, all of us together are still doing it on behalf of the audience, of the customer. And we're just trying to create a peak experience when they're shopping with us. And the way that ultimately comes out is like it can be tactical, right? It's building the tools, it's making sure that everything's integrated, it's making sure that the lead pass is going through and the opportunities are tagged, and that when an opportunity is closed won, the CS team is alerted. Like it can end up feeling very tactical, but it's actually a very strategic role in the sense that we're trying to put together the best experience for our customers.
So you're looking at all the pieces and making sure that they fit together and they work, and you understand that engine perfectly well, more than anyone else, and you know when, okay, we have an issue here, right? And when some people are going like, oh, I don't know where we are going wrong, you look at that engine and you realize where that bottleneck exists, where the communication is failing, where the process is just not being followed, where the wrong system is being used. Am I getting that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think and here's another angle that I'll talk about as operators. The team is in its nascency in a sense, right? When we started Go Nimbly, RevOps wasn't a term. The term that we used was unify your business stack. That was like our tagline at the time, because we didn't have the concept of RevOps. But the thing that we're fighting against is the same. Like if we were in a storybook, our villain is silos. And a lot of people focus on silos as like a people thing, like as if like teams aren't talking enough. In my experience, they are. In my experience, the marketing and sales leaders are talking. Like it's not that. It is silos do appear in people, but they also appear in process, in data, in access, in integrations. And what we're trying to do is streamline that so that we do have one view, whether it's of a data source, of a strategy, that we're using the same nomenclature. Essentially, we're always trying to figure out alignment. And people are very good at aligning themselves vertically. People don't need help. The marketers don't need help being aligned to the CMO. That happens very naturally. Humans are very good at that. What they're not good at is aligning horizontally. And so that's one of the things that RevOps needs to fight against. It's like, always, right, chaos always wins when you leave things on alone. It's like the teams are going to have a hard time collaborating and working together and making sure that they're still all pointed in the same direction and that they're not doing what's natural, which is like going back to their verticals.
So in terms of why companies struggle with RevOps, is that the biggest challenge that you see currently?
I don't know if it's the same for every company. I think we try to generalize a lot, whether it's with like team size or what their big gaps are. For some companies, and a lot of them, it is like an alignment problem. For other companies, the RevOps team is focused on, I don't know, a new product launch or a pivot that's happening. Like the work changes. And ultimately, you have to build a team that reflects the roadmap, right? Like, what is it that the business, what are their biggest gaps? What are the inflection points that we're going after? Let's work backwards and build a team that can manage that. And if you have a very misaligned team, then you're going to need some, senior leaders that can help that. If you have a team, I don't know, that has a CPQ, problem, then you're going to need highly technical architects that are going to fix that. And so, yeah, you have to assess the gaps and then build a team kind of against that. And there's some like, I don't know, these metrics are all survey based, but almost 100% of revenue teams and RevOps teams say that process gaps are costing them money. So like, that's a huge problem. Most people are feeling like their tech stack is not being utilized, like more than 50%. These are come from Rattle. But all of that tells us like the work doesn't end. It's just about, do you have a leader strong enough to point themselves at the biggest gap?
So what's the story behind Go Nimbly? How did it start? What gap were you aiming to fill, or how did the idea come into picture?
Oh gosh, it's I started off my career at a company called Blue Wolf. They were the biggest Salesforce partner at the time. Benioff was friends with Eric Berridge back at Oracle. Eric Berridge started Blue Wolf, and I was their first marketing automation hire for their marketing automation team. And I think that was really the crash course around all the stuff that I'm talking about, because I was very focused on top of funnel, basically that lead to meeting space. And the rest of the organization was focused on kind of meeting to sale. And so I was definitely somebody that it was frustrating at the time, but now I look at it very fondly. I was surrounded by sales minded people. And so I very quickly came to the realization that everything I did in this marketing automation software at the time, it was Eloqua, Marketo, HubSpot, anything that I did in that, software, it didn't matter if I wasn't thinking about what was happening downstream. It didn't matter how many lead scoring programs I put together or nurture programs, et cetera. If I didn't worry about the handoff and how to align with the sales team and how to prepare the sales reps, I wasn't making any more money. And so that became my obsession for a few years, was kind of this concept of sales and marketing alignment. Why are these two teams that seem so aligned? They're just trying to close more sales. Why is there so much friction? And like, why are we not mad at finance? So that became my obsession for a while. And then hindsight now, I think Blue Wolf was right. I wanted a promotion. I wasn't really getting it. They were saying I wasn't ready. I felt like I was ready. I was like 25 and I probably wasn't. And, that frustration led me to say, well, I'm just going to go do this on my own. And my first client ever was Twilio. And I will admit, I didn't know who they were. I was like, oh, they send text messages. Okay, awesome. Then I got in there and I was like, oh, baby, I'm in a rocket ship right now. So really focused on helping them with that lead to meeting, flow right off the bat. And they're still a client today. So Twilio was our first client. And then our second one was Zendesk, and they're also still with us. So like right off the bat, I have these like two incredible logos I was able to build a business on top of. And I know that's not like the best, like, business advice. Go get yourself a really incredible logo right off the bat, and that'll help. Part of this was luck for me, but it allowed me to build a business because I got to see how the best companies operate. And then I, got to learn playbooks, got to learn how SaaS works, and then we're able to apply it. And like the book, like the logos we have are incredible. Not only Twilio, Zendesk, but we're working with Intercom and Braze and all this like go-to-market tech, go-to-market technology, and like a big AI companies that you know and love that won't give me logo rights. We're working with them. So that has been a huge part of, our success.
I have to ask, how did you land Twilio as your first customer
Yeah.
without even really knowing who they were or how big they were? How did that happen?
Yeah. Networking. I had a friend that was doing some Salesforce work for them, and he knew they had marketing automation, pain. And he said, I know someone. I was like I I think probably what it was. So like that was just like a friend knew that I was great and referred me. I think the thing that led me to create a network of people that really knew I was great is I started off my career by specializing, and then I went more generalist. And so I really specialized in marketing automation. Like I got obsessed. First it was Eloqua. And I was like the number one Eloqua on a leaderboard at the community. I was posting every day. I was like at every conference. I was speaking at it. So I got very, very good at one technology. I was able to apply that to Marketo next and HubSpot next and just understood that. And then I elevated it to be more process oriented and kind of sales and marketing alignment. So I think that I created a good brand for myself. And then when somebody had, a gap they knew I could solve, it was easy for them. They trusted that like I can go refer Jen. And then, a pitch meeting and, got the gig for 3 months. And when I did, I really thought I was making more money, like probably double my salary with this like contract. And Blue Wolf said, you can come back if it doesn't work out. And so I just didn't have any risk. I was like, okay, great. I'll go do this for 3 months, see if I like it. And from then, continue to work, continue to build it. And here we are.
Was it called Go Nimbly then, or was it just Jen and then it changed?
Oh, fun. I haven't thought about this for a long time. The immediate name I used was Divided Sky LLC.
Okay.
Divided Sky Group, and it was just me. And that is from a Fish song, which is a band that I really like.
Nice.
So I had that for, I don't know, like 3 to 6 months, and then moved on to Go Nimbly.
So there's a lot of deep knowledge, a lot of passion and networking. That you talk about networking as if it was or it is something, it comes very natural to you, it
Sure.
seems, right?
Yeah.
Were you always like this? Is networking something that you had to work on, or does it come
Mm,
naturally to you and you just
yeah.
build relationships? How does that work for you?
Um, that's interesting. I am an extrovert, right? So like I do well in groups, and I like meeting new people. So I think from that perspective, it comes naturally. That being said, I do think it's a skill. And I think that there's tactics that you can use. And like I think one, I'm shameless. So like I will introduce myself, I will ask people for time. I know I'm gonna get turned down, but I'll do it. And so I think there's a bit of like have thick skin that you'll reach out to someone, invite them to a dinner, say you want to meet them, and they're going to say no, and you just got to go whatever and kind of move on. So there's a bit of that. You have to have thick skin. And then I think being kind of really thoughtful about giving. So like network is just like I give my expertise. If someone wants to chat RevOps, I'll do it. I'm not thinking about like, oh, I just spent 3 hours with them. I'm just like, they're gonna move on to more companies. People are gonna ask them things. So just like continuously giving value is a big part that I think makes my networking, work. And the other thing I try to do is connect people. So like, oh, Mateo, I think you should really meet Jim,
Right.
and do that often. I think that's a big part of networking is like people like being connected and
Yeah.
connecting others.
How much of how much does living in New York help your
Mm,
networking versus what you do online?
yeah. Um, what's funny? I actually realized a lot of my network is in San Francisco. So
Right.
I guess not that much, but I was traveling to San Francisco like 2 out of 4 weeks pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
So I was like
Got it.
living there basically 50% of my time because at that time, all of my clients are in SaaS. They were all in San Francisco. And so I had to be there. Now, our clients don't even ask us to be on site when it used to be a requirement. Like they used to really kill us on like, do you have
Yeah.
San Francisco consultants? And we had to pay these huge salaries and it was really hard. And people in SF don't stay at their jobs. So like a lot of turnover. And now we have to be like, hey, let's do an on-site because they're not going into the office either. And so I don't think like being local certainly helps, but I don't think it's a reason why you can't network anymore. I think anybody anywhere can show up to online communities, can ask for time, can engage on LinkedIn. There's plenty of people that I think I've met. And then I realize that we've just like been on LinkedIn talking to each other.
Is New York your favorite place in the world? Will you consider moving
Ooh,
to San Francisco or any other place?
not San Francisco. I don't want to talk shit about SF, but I had like a just like a I loved San Francisco when I first went, but that was like back in 2011.
Right.
And I remember going and it was just so beautiful. And like I went to a big peak and saw the water and it was incredible. And I think that like there's a lot of beauty in San Francisco. In New York, it's not beautiful. You go up to the highest building and it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
like it's breathtaking, but it's certainly not pretty. It smells like shit and everything's gray. But it's, it's my city. There's grit here. And I like the speed of New York. And San Francisco, frankly, has lost, in my opinion, the arts and music, even though it was a haven. It's like Robin Williams and the Grateful Dead. Like,
Yeah.
man, there was something about San Francisco at its time. Now there's not a lot coming out of it. Like punk rock was San Francisco. But New York still has that. It still has artists and it still has grit. And I don't see that in San Francisco. And so I'm not in love with it anymore. That being said, if I moved anywhere, I'd go back to Spain. I'd go and live in Madrid.
Beautiful. For it's weird. Madrid. So I'm from Uruguay in South America, and when we go to Madrid, it's like we feel at home, right? I mean,
Yeah.
of course, Uruguay,
Yeah.
Spain, but
Right.
it's amazing. It's an amazing place. Let's go back to Go Nimbly.
Yep.
What aspect of running Go Nimbly excites you the most today?
Ooh. So I think that there's been a shift over the last like 3, 4 years, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, right? Like money was really, really easy. People just threw money at problems. It made it so that the way, like the work that we were doing was a lot about quote unquote scaling quickly, but really it was about onboarding people quickly. It was, all right, I've got 10 SDRs. I'm going to end with 30 SDRs. How do I make sure that my routing and my activity tracking and then like I could just get them to be somewhat efficient? And that was the work. Now we're getting to a place where these are like some of the predictions that I have for 2025. I'm probably wrong. But the things that I'm making bets on are there's a big focus on go-to-market efficiency. VC companies have seen that like a handful of people can create a multi-million-dollar ARR company. And so we're not throwing people, money's not as cheap. And so we're being very thoughtful about headcount. And so now we're getting into a place where operators should be really excited. Like this is where the great revenue operators are going to thrive because the idea is like, how do I increase carry capacity? How do I make it so that I can reach that revenue goal that's double without doubling the sales team? That I can really look at the gaps, the things that are slowing us down, the way to increase conversion and make that, really interesting. And so that means that the work we're doing with our clients is really smart. It's not just about like, all right, we got to double the team. It's about how do we increase the productivity and efficiency of our go-to-market team. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. It shows up as like, okay, great. How do I automate research? I find out that my SDRs are either not doing research, which means they're not going to convert the deal as well, or they're spending 15 minutes to 30 minutes doing research that frankly operators are being really like lazy because the information's at our fingertips. We can go and get data from data enrichment. We can use tools like Clay and other scrapers to scrape certain websites and bring that back. We can put it in a way that like if you're an SDR and you have a lead that you have to call, you're not getting Jen Igartua Go Nimbly lead source webinar. You're getting a paragraph about Jen runs Go Nimbly. She also has a game company. She's active on LinkedIn. These are the things that she talks about. Her company just doubled in size. She's probably dealing with these pain points. If you're a public company, I'm going to go look at your share price and I'm going to look at your last, earnings, summary. And I'm going to give that to the rep. So when they're picking up the phone, they're smart. And like, that's something that we have, that's changing now. But for most people, the lead handoff process is the same as when I started, doing this work 15 years ago. It's just great, route it to somebody and send them an alert. We have to be giving people like much more information. So the work like that really excites me.
And that's when you talk about, I've heard you talk about we are doing a disservice to sales rep, right?
Totally.
That's what you mean. We are just, okay, here's a lead, whatever, go do your thing.
we're expecting these like really incredible peak moments, and we're like setting people up with garbage. And so it's funny how frustrated, marketers can get that, like, I sent over these leads and no one followed up, or I sent these leads and they didn't convert. And it's like, well, you sent an alert with somebody's name, number, and that they went to a webinar. That's not preparing. And you're sitting on it. Like, the part that's annoying is like you're sitting on this information. You know that they've signed up to your product. You know that they've used certain things. You know who else at the company did that. You know that we did a sales cycle 6 months ago, but that person left. Like, this is all stuff that we have available to us, that if we normalize that data and put it in a good place, I can set somebody up to have a really incredible first call. But we're not, right? We're still saying, hey, go click around Salesforce and figure it out.
Yeah. How much is and will AI agents, et cetera, help do a good service to sales rep?
Yeah, a ton. I'm not jaded about AI. I know a lot of people are. I don't think right now it's as life changing in the sense of like how a sales rep works as like we talk about. I don't think people are going to buy that differently because AI exists. I think that the way people buy and the motions, et cetera, are going to be pretty similar. Yes, they might do research with AI. Yes, we might automate some things, but the sales, like, what this should give is a lot more space for sellers to become great salespeople, as opposed to administrators, which were, there's been a big chunk of their work has been admin work. And I think the places that we're already seeing productivity is really in allowing AI to own some of the kind of BS work. And so I've mentioned Clay, so automated research. Gong is coming out with a lot of work around how do I automate the population of key fields in Salesforce, so I don't have to double click and say that, there's these 3 competitors. It already heard that on a call and tagged it. And so it's allowing AI to do some of that grunt work. Basically, you have an admin or an agent kind of sitting next to you and doing some of that work for you. And I think we'll see. I don't believe that the kind of AI SDR is going to work. I don't, believe, like, look at chatbots. Nobody wanted to work with them. Like, when they came out, we were like, no, we don't want to talk to a chatbot. And so I think there's going to be a little bit of that. And I'm hoping that we get a big change in the, people are saying spray and oh my God, spray and pray doesn't work. Right. But they're still doing it. Like, my inbox still shows me I have question for Jen in 15 emails. Like, people are still running the same plays, across the board for everyone. Will that change? Will AI, I hope people aren't saying, great, we're now going to do AI templated emails to send out. It's not like the AI is that much better. People have spent time customizing emails by a human and sending them, and they still didn't convert. I promise you that, like, having an AI do it isn't going to show you more conversion. You're just going to do more volume and you're going to ruin it for everybody. So, like, I think there's some things that AI is not going to fix.
So a part of this puzzle is doing a better service for sales reps, right?
Totally.
But at the same time, you were saying that for a moment in time in history, there was so much money that the solution was always to throw more people at it, right?
Right.
Do you think that the professional sales rep kind of as a group suffered in quality because of throwing so many people, and then we started having people that were not qualified, or we didn't even care if they were qualified, which we were just. What do you think about that? What do you think? Do you think the sales rep themselves as a group can improve?
Oof. I don't know if I've spent enough time thinking about that exactly to like feel like I've got an answer. But I do think that plus the pandemic, there's like a little bit of a lost generation that we're kind of managing and dealing with, because we did have a time where it was really easy to be a sales rep, frankly, and easy to be an operator too, and a bunch of other jobs. But like pre-pandemic, when money was flowing, tech companies were doing incredibly well. Think about like the ping pong tables and the million snacks and dinner every night and whatever. There's a group of people that grew up with that. And then it changed. And there's been like a reality check. And I do think there's a portion of those people that were making a ton of money with not a ton of effort, who are having a little bit of a shock that like expectations are higher. It's harder to sell. There's no denying it. Things are going with the CFO, like velocity is slower, conversion rates are down. Like it's a harder job. And I think there's a portion of people that are having a lot of shock around that. And then I think the second thing is that anybody that started their career kind of 2019 to 2023, sort of like pandemic career starters have it really hard. Go Nimbly used to hire out of school and do co-op programs. We stopped. We don't know how to do it virtually. I can't. So like now I just hire people with 3+ years experience because I can't teach the basics. I'm not good at it. I can't do it without sitting next to somebody. And part of that is like our company's billable, right? I need people to be actively working, spending hours with our customers. Right. And if you're new and I wake up in the morning and go, I don't know how to update this flow, fine. And I post that on a Slack channel. What happens is somebody comes back and goes, yeah, I can meet with you at 11. So now you're wasting 2 hours in the morning sitting there just being like, okay, I'll wait till 11. When what used to happen is I could tap somebody. In my first year at Blue Wolf, my manager would be like, come with me. We're doing a meeting. Come sit in here. Let's whiteboard. And I got smart because I was surrounded by smart people. And so I think that there's that also happening, that you have this new wave and expectations are higher for entry-level sales. SDRs are expected to do a lot more.
Yeah.
So, as much as I do not think people should be forced to be in-house, if I had a son or daughter that wanted to get into sales, I would say go find an in-person job. I would not tell them to do it remote. I think that like you just won't onboard as quickly.
Do you think in a way remote is kind of the luxury that experienced people can get at a certain point in their career?
I do, for the most part. I do think there are some, there's probably some technical jobs, et cetera, once you have the baseline where it's absolutely fine to be remote. But I think for the earlier in your career, the more impact it has to be in person. And then when you're more senior, you kind of have to be in there to train the junior people. So like, if you're building a team, you don't get that luxury. But yeah, I do think for the most part, for most roles, being in person, it's going to help you early in your career.
Very good. Let's switch a little bit. You're also involved with Pillbox Games.
Mm-hmm.
How has that experience shaped your approach to leadership or innovation at Go Nimbly? Tell us a little bit about it and then how they feed from each other.
Yeah, Pillbox Games is easy to explain. We make games. We make board games. And so we launched our first big board game in like 2017. It was called Side Effects. It's a little dark. Every person starts with an array of mental disorders ranging from depression and anxiety. And you have to be the first to treat yourself with pills and therapy. But when you take pills, it causes side effects, making it harder for you to treat yourself. Like super simple 15 kind of minute game, take that style, like an Exploding Kittens kind of thing. And we started the company just like we did a Kickstarter. We thought it'd be fun to make this game. That's it. Since then, we've sold almost 100,000 games.
Wow.
We are like the number 3 game at Barnes & Noble. Amazon Prime picked us up. We're doing pitch meetings often. We've done expansion packs and new games and all that. And it is B2C, and it's very different from selling services in the thousands. And, I've had a few moments where I've, kind of realized that I wasn't making the best choices. After we finished our first game, the factory that made Side Effects told us we were the most expensive card game they've ever made. And I was like, that's probably not good. Like I wasn't trying to make it, I'm still selling it at $25. And it's because everything felt so cheap to me. It was like, oh, you want better card stock for 3 cents? Absolutely. 3 cents. Do you want gold foil for 75 cents? Yeah. Do you want gold edging on the cards? I was like, that sounds rad. Do you want a magnet for $1? I was like, $1? Yeah. And so we added everything we could think of. And then we had a game that like the economics didn't work. We have since done a retail version. But yeah, there's things that I'm kind of learning about both businesses. But I think the biggest impact is there are some really lovely things about B2C. Take conferences, for example. We do game conferences and then we also do tech conferences. Game conferences are a lot more fun. People show up with a lot more energy. People at booths are excited and talking about their games with passion. And you go to a tech conference and sometimes an SDR is having breakfast at the booth looking at their phone. And so like there is a lot of things from the experience of running a B2C company that I think make me a better marketer and things about running a business sometimes that make me a worse operator in the game company because I just don't know how to. I'm not as good. I'm getting better at making a cheap game.
Do you ever see yourself doing just one, or do you think that you need the both to be a full, the full gen that
Yeah.
you are?
I've always loved doing like side projects. A lot, it's funny. I'll compare it sometimes. Like some people have kids. I don't have kids. So
Right.
like some people have full-time jobs having children. I don't. So like I make games. And some people are blown away by that, but I'm like, I'm not managing children. And so
Right.
like I've got a lot more free time than somebody without. So I think I'll always be doing stuff. My boyfriend's a comedian, so like I also work with him a lot on like he's launched specials, etc. I really love that world. So no, I don't think they'll ever do just one. Um, frankly, and this is like I wasn't planning on saying this, but like Pillbox Games is not going to make me enough money for me to quit Go Nimbly. It's yeah, it's a margin based, but I would have to become the next Cards Against Humanity or Monopoly to like give myself a decent salary. I've taken probably less than 100,000, probably less than $50,000 out of that company in the last 5 years. Like I'm not
Right.
making cash from Pillbox Games, but it's really fun. It's really creative. It could one day, I mean, it is passive income.
Right. Right.
I don't have to spend that much. It sells itself through distributors. But no, I'm never going to quit my job and go do Pillbox Games. And if like we exit Go Nimbly, I think I'll start something else on top of it.
Got it. Let's go to the comedian boyfriend and improv. Did you
Yeah.
start? So you do improv, right? Did you
Yeah.
start improv and then meet your boyfriend, or did you meet your boyfriend and then go do improv?
No, I've always really loved comedy. So I did improv like pre-pandemic for years, like had a little team. I also did musical improv and I can't sing. I just think it's like so funny to make up songs. And I did it as a way, this was before Pillbox Games. I did it as a way of like having a creative outlet because, Go Nimbly at the time was a lot of like work for it was early. It was a lot of staffing and hiring and like the work was complex and all that. Now, since we have a big team, so I don't feel as overwhelmed. But at the time I didn't have a creative outlet. So that's when I just took improv classes at UCB here in New York and really loved it. And improv versus stand up, which me and my boyfriend have a lot of combos about that. He's team stand up, I'm team improv. Improv is silly. And I've tried stand up. Stand up is brutal.
Right.
It's writing, right? It's like you spend a lot of time crafting a joke. The amount of like he will obsess over the order of words.
Right.
And you test it out and test it out and you bomb and you have to get in front of people and do it badly to make it better. It's actually a really beautiful thing to watch, the like craft of it. Improv, there's a craft, but it's also you show up and all of a sudden you're a chicken in space, and you get to do that.
Yeah.
So I love the outlet of that kind of comedy. I think the craft of stand up is much more respectable as an adult.
Got it. Got it. Is there any other thing that you do when you are not working besides these activities? Do you
Ooh.
find time?
Yeah, I travel a ton. I love spending like a chunk of time in a new city. After the pandemic, I did Buenos Aires for like
Right.
almost 2 months. Spent some time in Colombia the year after, about a month in like Bogota, Medellin. Spent some time in Mexico City last year. I'm thinking about going back to Buenos Aires this year. I go to Spain. I like getting on a plane and traveling is like one of the things that I really love doing. And I also hate it because I'm tired all the time, but I don't know why. I just keep booking, the trip. And I mean, I'm lazy too. I love like video games. I will sit on my Switch and like play games for hours. Like I can be a total bum. Like a lot of people will look at CEOs. I don't wake up early. I woke up today at 8:45. Like I don't
Right.
do the get up and do a cold plunge and get to work and work on weekends. Like I've read enough about productivity and focus to know that like there is diminishing return and I
Yeah.
need rest. And so I will be a slob and order pizza, smoke some weed, and play video games. So, I take my time.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, One last question to you, Jen. what advice, if you had to give some last advice to anyone listening in the audience, a business looking to build strong RevOps teams, or someone that wants to join the industry, what would be your advice for anyone listening?
Ooh, okay. Early in your career, I think the thing that I talked about, which is like specialize in a few things, like the best operators and business owners are generalists. There's like a ton of data that shows that. It's your ability to take expertise in one area, apply it to another, that makes a really great generalist. And when they look at generalist, quote unquote, shapes, the M generalist means that you have 3 areas of expertise and you're able to connect them. And like that makes you really strong at solving problems. So if you're early in your career, go learn something deeply. Go throw yourself at a piece of technology or a process or an industry or something, because that's going to allow you to become a generalist later on. The people that just go very broad and they don't tend to get to C-level. So that's just like one kind of thing early on. For those that are building a RevOps team, there's a lot of pressure to like be quote unquote strategic, right? It's like, we need to be a strategic function. And that's true, but you are also tactically getting stuff done. It is also your job to help the go-to-market teams do their job. And so I'll say that we're in an interesting little place with revenue operations, where about 5 to 10 years ago, when we started talking about RevOps, it was a lot of like, what is it? Why do we need to do it? And now we're getting into like a place of what, like, what is it? How do we get stuff done? Or how, not what, how do we actually execute, on this vision of being a strategic, impactful team? At the same time, C-level believes it. So you're now getting pressure from executives to become this thing, especially because we've shown that like public companies with RevOps do better. Like investors are now saying you need RevOps earlier and earlier. VCs are saying hire RevOps earlier. So expectations are really high.
Right.
And I get the question a lot of like, how big should my team be? How much headcount, et cetera. And I teased this a little earlier, but you have to know where you're going. So like go build your vision, your roadmap, your outcomes, and then work backwards and build a great team. It is not, there's no benchmark that you can look at to say what kind of team you need. It has to be a reflection of the work that you have to do. So like take the time to really do that kind of visioning. Where am I in a year? What kind of skill sets I need? And then you can focus on building a great team.
Got it. Jen, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Wonderful conversation, and I learned a lot. And I hope that sometime again in the future we can do this again.
Love it. Thank you.